Today is September 13th, 2023, and I would like to bring you this day in history. After decades of bloody animosity, representatives of Israel and Palestine met on the south lawn of the White House and signed a framework for peace. The Declaration of Principles was the first agreement between Israel and Palestinians towards ending their conflict and sharing the Holy Land between the River Jordan and the Mediterranean Sea that they both claimed as their homeland. Fighting between Jews and Arabs in Palestine dates back to the 1920s, when both groups laid claim to the British-controlled territory. The Jews were Zionist, recent immigrants from Europe and Russia who came to the ancient homeland for the Jews to establish a Jew national state. The native Arabs, they did not yet call themselves Palestinians, sought to stem Jewish immigration and set up a secular Palestinian state. On May 14th, 1948, the State of Israel was proclaimed, and 5 Arab nations attacked in support of the Palestinian Arabs. Israelis fought off Arab armies and seized substantial territory originally allocated to the Arabs in 1947. United Nations partition of Palestine. After 2 successive UN broker ceasefires, the State of Israel reached a formal armistice agreement with Egypt, Lebanon, Jordan, and Syria in February 1949. These agreements left Israel in permanent control of the territory it had conquered during the conflict. The departure of hundreds of thousands of Palestinian Arabs from Israel during the war left the country with a substantial Jewish majority. Israel restricted the rights of the Arabs who remained. Most Palestinian Arabs who left Israeli territories retreated to the West Bank, then controlled by the Transjordan, present-day Jordan, and others to the Gaza Strip, controlled by Egypt. Hundreds of thousands of exiled Palestinians moved permanently into refugee camps. By the early 1960s, the Palestine Arab diaspora had formed a cohesive national identity. In 1964, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, PLO, was formed as a political umbrella organization for several Palestinian groups and meant to represent all Palestinian people. The PLO called for the destruction of the State of Israel and the establishment of an independent Palestinian nation. In the Six-Day War of 1967, Israel seized control of the West Bank, East Jerusalem, and the Gaza Strip, in the Sinai Peninsula and the Golan Heights. Israel permanently exiled East Jerusalem and set up military administrations in the occupied territories. Although Israel offered to return some of the territory seized in return for the security requirements of Israel, the Arab League opted against formal negotiations in the Khartoum Resolution, September 1st, 1967. The Sinai was later returned to Egypt in 1979 as a part of an Israeli-Egyptian peace agreement, but the rest of the occupied territories remained under Israeli control. A fraction of Israelis called for permanent annexation of these regions, and in late 1970s, nationalist Jewish settlers settlers moved into the territories as a means of accomplishing this aim. After the 1967 war, the PLO was recognized as a symbol of the Palestinian national movement, and the PLO chairman Yasser Arafat organized guerrilla attacks on Israel from the PLO bases in Jordan, and after 1971 from Lebanon. The PLO also coordinated terrorist attacks against the Israelis at home and abroad. The Palestinian guerrillas and terrorist activity provoked highly reprisals from Israel's armed forces and intelligence services. By the late 1970s, Arafat had won international acceptance of the PLO as the legitimate representative of the Palestinian people. Egypt and Syria forces launched an attack against Israel on Yom Kippur in 1973 in an attempt to regain land lost during the Third Arab-Israeli War. A ceasefire went into effect on October 25, 1973. On September 17, 1976, after nearly 2 weeks of secret negotiations at Camp David, Sadat and Israeli Prime Minister Menachem Begin signed the Camp David Accords, the first peace agreement between Israel and one of its Arab neighbors. The accord sought to establish a framework for peace in the Middle East, and both countries agreed to share the Nobel Peace Prize for 1978 as part of the agreement. These events ultimately led to Sadat's assassination on October 6, 1981, by Islamic extremists. Violence mounted in the 1980s, with Palestinians clashing with Jewish settlers in the occupied territories. In 1982, Israel invaded Lebanon to dislodge the PLO. In 1987, Palestinian residents of Gaza and the West Bank launched a series of violent demonstrations against Israeli authorities known as Infidad, or the shaking off. Shortly after, Jordan's King Hussein renounced all administrative duties for the West Bank, thereby strengthening the PLO's influence there. As the Infidad raged on, Yasser Arafat proclaimed an independent Palestinian state in West Bank and Gaza Strip on November 15, 1988. 1 month later, he denounced terrorism, recognized the State of Israel rights to exist, and authorized the beginning of the Land for Peace negotiations with Israel. Israel refused to open direct talks with the PLO, but in 1991, Israeli diplomats met with a joint Jordanian-Palestinian negotiation at Madrid Peace Conference. In 1992, Labour Party leader Yitzhak Rabin became Israel's prime minister, and he vowed to move quickly on the peace process. He froze the new Israeli settlement in the occupied territory and authorized secret negotiations between Israel and the PLO that began in January 1993 in Oslo, Norway. These talks resulted in several key agreements and led to the historic peace accord of September 13, 1993. On the south lawn of the White House that day, Israeli Foreign Minister Shimon Peres and PLO foreign policy official Hamed Abbas signed the Declaration of Principles on the Interim Self-Government Agreement. The accord called for the withdrawal of Israeli troops from the Gaza Strip and the West Bank, town of Jericho, and the establishment of the Palestinian government that would eventually be granted authority over much of the West Bank. President Bill Clinton presided over the ceremony with more than 3,000 onlookers, including former President George Bush and Jimmy Carter, watched in amazement as Arafat and Rabin sealed the agreement with a handshake. The old and bitter enemies had met for the first time at a White House reception that morning. In his remarks, Rabin, former top-ranking Israeli army general, told the crowd, "We, the soldiers who have returned from battle stained with blood, we who have seen our relatives and friends killed before our eyes, we who have fought against you, the Palestinians, we say to you today in a loud and clear voice, enough blood and tears, enough." And Arafat, the guerrilla leader who for decades was targeted for assassination by Israeli agents, declared that the battle for peace is the most difficult battle of our lives. It deserves our utmost efforts because the land of peace yearns for a just and comprehensive peace. Despite attempts by extremists on both sides to sabotage the peace process with violence, and Israelis completed their withdrawal from the Gaza Strip and Jericho in May 1994. In July, Arafat entered Jericho amid much Palestine jubilation and set up his government, the Palestinian Authority. In October 1994, Arafat and Rabin, Shimon Peres, were jointly awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for their efforts at reconciliation. In September 1995, Rabin, Arafat, and Peres signed a peace agreement providing for the expansion of the Palestinian self-ruled in the West Bank and for democratic elections to determine the leader of the Palestinian authorities. Just over a month later, on November 4th, 1995, Rabin was assassinated by Jewish extremists at the peace rally in Tel Aviv. Peres became the prime minister and pledged to continue the peace process. However, terrorist attack by Palestinian extremists in early 1996 swayed Israeli public opinion, and in May, Benjamin Netanyahu of the right-wing Likud party was elected prime minister. Netanyahu insisted that the Palestinian Authority chairman Arafat meet his obligations to end terrorists by Palestinian extremists, but sporadic attacks continued and the peace process stalled. In May 1999, Ehud Barak, the Labour Party, defeated Netanyahu in the national elections and pledged to bold steps to forge a comprehensive peace in the Middle East. However, extended negotiations with the PLO ended in failure in July 2000, when Barak and Arafat failed to reach an agreement at a summit in Camp David, Maryland. In September 2000, the worst violence since the Intifada broke out between Israelis and the Palestinians after Likud leader Ariel Sharon visited the Temple Mount and the holiest Islamic site in Jerusalem. Seeking a stronger leader to suppress the bloodshed, Israelis elected Sharon prime minister in February of 2001. Though Arafat pledged to join the Americans' war on terrorists after the attacks of September 11, 2001, he was not able to garner the favor of U.S. President George W. Bush, who was strongly pro-Israel. In December 2001, after a series of Palestinian suicide attacks on Israel, Bush did nothing to stop Israel as it reconquered areas of the West Bank and occupied parts of Ramallah, effectively imprisoning Arafat in Palestinian Authority headquarters. After Israel dismissed an alternative peace plan for the Fourth and the Arab League in March 2002, Palestinians' attacks increased, causing Israel to again turn to military interventions in the West Bank. A cycle of terrorist attacks, IFD reprisals, and failed diplomacy continued for the next 2 years. In late October of 2004, reports surfaced that Arafat was seriously ill. He was flown to Paris for treatment, and in early November fell into a coma. He was pronounced dead on November 11th. Mahmoud Abbas became the new chairman of the PLO, and he was elected president of the Palestinian Authority in January 2005. The next year, Hamas seen by many observers as a terrorist organization, won control of Palestinian legislative body, complicating any potential negotiations. Despite an Israeli withdrawal from the disputed Gaza territory and the fact that both sides ostensibly are committed to a two-state solution, peace in the region remains elusive. I want to thank you for watching today, and as always, stay safe and stay blessed. And remember to smile, because I love you, but more importantly, our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ loves you the most, and that's the best love that you could have. If you like the content of this video, please give it and comment down below. Those two things really help my channel, but what really helps me is if you become a Serendipity subby. Yes, come on over and subscribe to my channel. It doesn't cost a thing. All you have to do is push that subscribe button and then go to the notifications and push that all, so you'll get notified every time I upload a new video. Alright everybody, have a blessed day, and I will see you in my next video. Bye everybody.